Welcome to Mystic John Paranormal, where today we're delving into the art of tarot card reading and going a little bit deeper, because some people ask me, how on earth do I come up with the different meanings for the same card? It's really strange, isn't it? Well, it isn't, because I'm going to try and demystify some of that. Let's demystify a little. It's nice to demystify and get people to understand a little bit more about how to read tarot cards properly, with that little bit of extra information that we hopefully will give you in a minute. Now, each set of cards usually comes with its own little information pack to depict exactly how you read each single card the right way up, and what you should do if you're going to read it upside down, which you don't have to do. You can assume that they're all the same way up. But there's also a general theory on each single card, a general way of reading it via the book. I have one here, very old. It's actually my great-grandparents, I think. And we're going to read through, we've chosen the Four of Pentacles, or the Four of Discs as it is in one of them. And let's just read the original here from very, very early on in the 1900s. The Four of Discs, or Four of Deniers here. Social amusements and association with entertaining people, which, if the card is reversed, see, it's looking at the reverse side of it, will probably involve the inquirer in excessive expenditure. So it's now going on to a little bit of what the card is about, and then tries to push it into, well, actually, if it's reverse, this is how we should read it. So, socializing, how you meet people. Obviously, if you think up to the number 4, 1, the start of something, 2, the journey and choices, 3, what might happen with those choices, and then 4 tends to be what we're trying to achieve, what is going to be achieved by the choices that you've made and the actions that have been subsequently selected by yourself. So 4 is it's a lot about what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and will we achieve those things, and what sort of things are we trying to achieve in the first place. So it matters what cards are around it. However, when we're looking at one card, I look at this card. This is the Aleister Crowley one. This is Thoth Tarot. As you can see, there's a little bit of an energy pack there. It's called Power. So they give a little description in the Thoth Tarot, giving a power sign at the bottom. So this is about power, energy. It can also be about work. So if I look at that pack, it tells me it's about work. It's about energy. But here, note that there are there's a few little interesting bits on this card that we'll come to in a minute. In the second choice, this is my original card deck, the Four of Pentacles. You can see the pentacles behind the person there. And I got this completely wrong, and this is one of the things that I've said many times. Do please stay on. It is a really interesting run through this card, and it does show you how to really try and change those meanings dependent on certain things. Do like and subscribe. There'll be lots more like this as we go on. So the Four of Pentacles. I got this completely wrong. Always try and write down what you put down in a reading. If you can, record it so you can play it back. My wife, when she was alive, used to write things down line by line. You read these 3 cards, you said that it meant this, and we could go back. And when it started going wrong and I started missing things, we realized that people were coming back and saying that you didn't tell me I was going to the doctor for a serious illness. I knew there was an illness possibly around, but I didn't know there was a doctor's meeting. I didn't know that that's where the doctor's meeting. Look at this card. I went back through my history. That looks like a doctor in a white coat with the windows behind him, whoops, with the windows behind him, and you're seeing him through his office window, through the doctor's window, and the girl there is facing him, almost like she's expecting the news from the doctor. Now, obviously, if I go via the meaning I just read out of my very old book, upside down means that doctor's appointment's going to cost you money. It's either going to cost you money because you're going to be away from work, it's going to cost you money because it's going to cost to have that treatment, or somehow it's going to cost you money because this illness is going to be, or the meeting is going to be meaning a loss of cash. Now, that is via the look of the card, which is where we start bringing in the visual side of things. Now, look at this person. Now, I often look at this. This is actually Four of Pentacles. And if you look, it looks like there's a hell of a lot more pentacles there, isn't it? It really does. But there's a lot more in that card. Look at the busyness of that card. And you think, wow, what's this card trying to tell me? Well, look, he's gathering. He wants to gather more. He wants, the idea here is he wants to gather in his wealth. And he wants to make sure it's safe. He wants to keep it safe. He's not trying to give it away. He's not usually giving it away because there's nobody around taking it. It's very worldly because we've got the moon in the background and the stars. So he's a very worldly person. He's quite wise. He gathers things and he understands the meaning and the reason why he's doing it. And of course, these all have, well, he doesn't have an understanding if it's upside down. And he needs to gather it more and not sort of perhaps give it away, depending on the cards around it. So, upside down, the right way round, they all have specific meanings as cards, except for when you realise that your guide is reading it completely different. So always try and keep an eye on what you're reading so that you can go back if hopefully someone comes back to you and says, you know something, I think you got that wrong, you missed this. And then if 3 or 4 people come back and say, you got that wrong, thank them. In fact, when they leave the reading, tell them, if we get it wrong, do tell me. If I get it right, tell me, because I need to make sure that I'm working with my guide perfectly. And this is really important if you can't hear your guide speak, because then if you can't hear your guide, you need to make sure you're getting that link perfect, which means, yeah, exactly, that is now the doctor's card. I change all my meanings into a doctor's card. It is a good idea to write your general meanings down, 1 through to the king, and try and change it. Like the doctor's card there, 4 of Pentacles becomes doctor's card on my original cheat sheet, as I called it, because then you start to learn it easier. If you've got a cheat sheet when you really start, you can do that quite nicely and quite easily. So what about the visual side? We're looking at the visual side here. Now, we've got a tree in the background here, which tends to mean think there's a lot of thought about this. Trees and odd lines that sort of wiggle all over the place tend to be about sort of odd thoughts, so going all over the place. As you see the tablecloth in the background, it has wiggly lines as well. It's very much about, we don't know what's happening here. It's spreading all over the place. What's happening? We don't know. It's an anything card. This could be anything at all. We've got a building in the background through the window, so it could be about trying to sort of see others, meet others. There are other places to go. There are other places to visit. It depends what my thoughts are on a house. What does a house mean? It means homeliness. This could affect the home because we've got a home in the background. It could affect the home as well, so it could affect your home life. Well, a doctor certainly would do that. I want to go to the original one, and this is a little bit more difficult. If you look here at the lines are in sort of orangey brown around the side, they're very, very angular, aren't they? They're sort of, there's not a lot of them. They're very precise, very angular. This is about actual physical thinking, making sure your thoughts are precise, accurate, spot on. So the power card tries, or the work card, whichever way you want to read it, it could be both. It could be energy. Now, that is the other thing. We look at this, it looks like a bit like an energy pack, and it's not ridiculous to think of it like that, because it looks like an energy pack. It could be power, energy, strength. It could be akin to the strength card. Why? Because these are 4 power packs. Look, these are 4 energy packs. You can see the wires between them. Actually, it's I think it's supposed to depict the moat around a castle. Well, it is, but it looks like the power pack, and it looks like the moat is the wires between them. So we can read it that way because power, energy, and it's been designed like that on purpose so that it does look like a little bit like a power pack, a little bit like an energy pack. I think in the book for this one, it does actually mention in this version that it depicts almost a battery, so that on purpose it looks like power, energy, but it could also be work. Because most people will work, and they will push most of their energy, most of their power, most of their daily energy goes into work. So that is why that is like that. But it has 2 things in this card. It has the power pack for energy, and it has the lines for precise, exact, meticulous planning, making sure everything isn't overthought. There's not a lot of lines there, just a little bit of thought, very precise thinking. So there's 2 things in that card, and we think, ooh, is it the same in the third pack? Well, how busy do we want this one? Well, remember those nice lines? Well, the barrier behind has some very, very very intricate patterns on it, and the floor, if you look at the floor, it's a square tiled floor. There is a pattern on the floor, so behind his foot, and I'm not quite sure how we read that one, but the floor is very square, very, very parallel lines. It's very much like the power card for straight lines on the bottom, but opposite, you've got a little bit of thinking here, Now, there are cards with more finer detail, really complex swirls and lines, and you look at how complicated those patterns are. This pattern is sort of in the middle of those 2. It's not too busy, but it's certainly not nice and calm. So here we have something that's about thought. It's about how your thought is going. The floor is saying nice, calm, easy. That way up, nice, calm, easy, not too much overthinking. The other way, you see, what we're doing there is we're saying which one of those 2 thought patterns are going to be on top now. Well, we're going negative. So we do tend to think a little bit too much, because that barrier behind is thinking a little bit too much, a little bit more complex than your standard lines. So lines in cards mean an awful lot, and depending on whether they're upside down or the right way round, you can read them either way. You do think too much, or you need to think a little bit more, depending on whether it's the right way round or upside down. Now, what other things do we have to think about? I'll show you. I'll just give you a recollection of 1 or 2 that we do have in the different packs at random, and we'll go through a few. But certainly for the 4, it's nice and simple, which is why I chose it. depending on the cards around this one, you're going to have to be reading power, energy, work, or the way that they're thinking. Is it nothing to do with this middle bit? Is it to do with the lines around it? Now, there's two ways of doing this. If you can speak to your spirit guide, he will guide you into, you need to look at the lines. Forget the middle bit, look at the lines. That's what we're doing with thinking. Or he'll put his hand on your head. We need to do the thinking bit here. Or if you can't, you look at the cards beside it and you think, for instance, if you had the Ten of Swords, which is swords going into the head, and it's a bit of a nightmare thought-wise, and this person's having a pretty bad time with mental issues, then realistically this card is really going to be about thought, isn't it? It's not going to be about power, it's going to be about thought. So you've got a thinking card in front. You maybe have a different card, say where it's going behind it, or you may have another thinking card at behind it. So the three cards will usually have, if it has one card of thought, like the Ten of Swords, you may have something like this and think, oh, I'm going to go with the thought part of this. We need to be more meticulous, more planned, more gentle, slow, steady thoughts. Stop overthinking things. Make sure we're planned and precise. Oh, there's nice straight lines and straight angles. Precise, really good thinking. And that's why we look at the cards at the side of each other and we say, which one of these... I mean, fortunately, this really only has two main ways I would read this card, and so it's which one, the central part or the external part. In here, we have a few things. We have the house in the background. Is it going to affect the homeliness? Is it a good hospital meeting? Is it going to give you expense? We have got a flower in the background on there on the table. We've got worldly possessions on the table. We've got different possessions. We've got books for learning. We've got a vase for, again, possessions. Perhaps we'll get pointed to the table behind, and this is about the doctor's meeting. It's going to affect the possessions of a person, or are we going to point to the house? It's going to affect the homeliness, or upside down. It's going to cost money. It's going to mean expenditure. Again, on here we go back for the last time in the Four of Pentacles. So I heard, because it's Four of Pentacles discs or deniers or whatever you want to call it. They're all called different in different books. So he's holding his pentacles. What do you have around it? Do you have thought cards around it? Because these two are really critical if it is surrounded by thought cards. Upside down, it's more about the intricate thinking, and a little bit too intricate. Just slow it down a little bit. As you can see, there's a lot about thought here. The doctor's card could be, you're going to the doctors because you've got anxiety problems. With all of these cards could be about physical thought issues that we have, all the way from serious mental issues all the way down to just overthinking. So we have to look at the cards externally to it, and we have to try, if we can, and get the feedback from the spirit world. So let's just, in the second part of this video, just grab a couple. I don't want to use that one, we'll use this one. And I do this randomly on purpose, because what we've got is several different things here. I go to the first one. Why not? Page of Pentacles. I always say we've got a peacock there. If you can just see it in the background, a peacock to me is, and to my guide, is a person in your vicinity. Yeah, the peacock is behind him. It's someone in his background, someone around you who's pretending to be that gorgeous peacock, but actually they're not. They're pretending to be it. Here we can see the peacock for what the peacock is. Just a bird. He's not got his feathers up. He looks normal. But normally he's got his feathers out, and he or she is pretending to be someone who they are not. Again, we have thought. thought in this card, and the way they act is absolutely critical. The face on the person here, in this particular pack, we look at the face of the person, and it sort of depicts 4 different types of thought in the page cards, very, very nicely. So the page card here is about thought. How are we thinking things, and how is the person we're talking about thinking things? And the peacock is the person not quite showing themselves for what they are. But look at this. We've also got some flowers there, blooming flowers. We're getting to the point of everything's just coming to flower. Everything's just coming to fruition. Everything that we've tried happens to be coming out now and blossoming. There are a few weeds in the background here, just there. Yeah, just be careful not. See, a weed to me is it grabs itself around your feet if you stay there too long. So what it's saying is, don't stay there too long. Try and make sure that you move along steadily, or at least don't stand in one place for too long, because the weeds could grab around your feet and they're just not good for your future. You have to move on occasionally. And I just want to, it says get in some of the other cards. See, that's one of the other pages. Again, that the face of the individual is important. Again, we've got flowers, but these flowers are just starting to bloom. These flowers are just past the bud stage. They're just starting to bloom. We haven't got there yet. We're a page. We're not a king yet. We're a page. We're just starting to bloom. A lot of thinking, but very, 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 very angular. These very, very square with a few rectangles in the middle. Very well thought out. There's a lot more weeds on here. This person is a lot more prone to standing around. A lot more prone because there's a lot more weeds. If we're pointed to the weeds, if there's weeds in all 3 cards, I'm reading the weeds. Be very careful of standing around too long. He's standing around very nicely at the minute, but the weeds are certainly, if you look at it, the weeds in that one, they're almost coming out there and they're almost touching his foot. Be very aware not to stand around too long. To try something else. There's a couple of ones that we can see. Strength card is quite interesting because strength usually is strength, energy, strength. But we see something around the neck of the lion there, and this person does have control over this lion. Somehow they've managed to get the collar on the lion, and she is able to control strength. She's able to be strong. Now, I'm going to show you this one purposefully. See the rabbit in the corner? Whatever you think of from the rabbit, between you and your guide, that is what you're going to read. Perhaps if he points out if you point out an animal, the rabbit tends to be is hiding, is sort of like he's watching, he's keeping an eye on you. It's more about, but it's not an evil. People don't have evil rabbits, do they? It's someone watching you, keeping an eye on you. They're not evil, they're not nasty, but they're keeping an eye on you in the background, out of there. But there's a lot of weeds in this card, and this is one of those that you would look at with that last one and say, there's an awful lot of weeds in this card, isn't there? The thinking, look at the top, look at the leaves there. It's very, very odd patterns in there. There's lots of it, and it's almost like the person's thinking things, but they're very precise thoughts. But there's a hell of a lot of thoughts. There's too many thoughts. Calm down, cool it. At least those patterns are quite angular and quite precise. It's just there's hundreds of them on those leaves, and it really is quite frightening that person thinks like that. There are actually bugs on. There's little bugs down here. I don't know if you can see them, but there's little bugs down there proving that these are ready to get you. They really are. This is a nasty point to that weed. That weed is really getting quite out of hand. If we think of, and this is where we think, things like this. We've got the trees in the bottom. Are we thinking about the worldliness? Are there lots of worldly signs and stars and pictures of moons? Is this person worldly? Is he, or does he have to be a little bit more open to the world and other people and surroundings? This person doesn't always think about the other people around him, because we're talking about the world. He got there for a reason. He's at the top. He's a king. But he got there for a reason. Did he think about the people who got him there? The world sign. Or did he not? You've also got the trees at the bottom. The trees is a very, very careful thought plan. It's one way, then the other, then out again, and then out again. He's thinking things over. Very, very well planned. And he's thinking them carefully, but in detail. Really tight detail. Which is where you get the tree pattern from. There are several others. There's a monkey on here. The hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. There's someone there who'll do all of that and then steal the money. There's a tortoise down there for something, other things that you might think of a tortoise. It's what you think and your guide thinks. So there's lots of things in these cards. A lot of things in the background. He thinks he's won the battle. Look at the sun. Look at the bad clouds in the background. The blood red clouds. The blood's being spilt, but it's in the background. He's won. Or has he? Because let's face it, we've got people dying behind him. And we've got grass around his feet. Is he standing there too long? He's going to sink into the mud if he stands there too long. And there are lots of things that we have to think about while we're actually reading it. Don't just read it as the war's won. Or is it? It's been a battle. Or has it? What are we reading from this card? Perhaps we're not reading it as a battle. Perhaps we're reading the people behind. And you're not thinking about the people you've left behind. You're not thinking about the people who've taken the flak for you. It may be that. So you have to think about the things around the card. If you see that, you might not see it, but there's a little mouse in the corner. And then in another one, there's a mole. Obviously, mole is blind. If you pick up a card and the two cards either side, or the two cards next to it read that he's not seeing this situation for what it is, or he's not being worldly and looking at other people around him, and you pick up the card with a little mole in the corner, it really is about that, isn't it? Because the mole is saying, you're being blind. The mole is blind, can hardly see. So you're not being blind, you're not looking at the situation, you're not looking at other people, dependent on what two cards are with it. So I always read in three, which is where that comes from. So it's very important that we look, and this one's got 3 mice on it, so it's very important that we look at the little details in cards, and that we don't always read what's happening in it, or the actual reading from the book, because we saw the book, we read the book out. There's plenty of information in these cards. We just have to be able to pick out the little bits of weasel. We know what a weasel is, don't we? You little weasel. Somebody you can't really trust. This is the Ace of Pentacles. Something's starting. However, be careful of the weasel. There's somebody that knows it's going to start, and he's a bit of a weasel, this guy, and you really don't want to be getting into trouble with him or her. You want to be making sure you know who the weasel is before this starts. Simple card, isn't it? Two of wands, but there's weeds in this corner. Look, there's weeds in here. So make the choice. Don't stand around and wait for it. By the time you've thought it, the weeds have come. You've missed the point completely. This is an interesting. I like this one. You'll like this one. This is the Ten of Swords, which is obviously, horrible card. You sit. If you lay there, you're going to get it's depression. It's everything bad that you can possibly get. But they placed a donkey next to it, or a donkey, or an ass. And in English, if you're being an ass, you're being stupid. So this person can move around. Why? He can move out of the way because he's being an ass. He's being stupid. He's laying in the middle of this of where all the people are throwing the swords at him or her. On one side, dark clouds. On the other side, clouds are clearing. Yeah, you can get the clouds to clear. Just move and stop being an ass. It really is as simple as that. This is the card. I was looking for this one. This is the card with the mole in the bottom. Look, they've got a mole in there. Yeah, he wants to move on. All the love cups. The 8 of cups. And he's leaving the 8 cups behind and he's moving on. Let's just move on. Let's forget what we've had in the past, especially regards love. Unless, is it something else he's leaving behind? Have a look at the cards either side. It may just be that we're talking about him leaving something behind and the cups are irrelevant. If the 2 cards next to it indeed are about health, then we need to forget about it, move on and go and do something else. It may not have anything to do with love. It may do, though. Blind? Are we being blind? I've had this card come out. Nothing to do with moving on. Nothing to do with love. It's to do with being absolutely blind. Just being, pig ignorant. Sorry, that's what my guide said. It's just being blind to the world, being blind to your friends and being blind to the actions around you. So it is always interesting to look at these cards and make sure that you understand exactly what they mean. It may not be what it shows in the book. The good book is a very good guide. But things go wrong and then all of a sudden you realise that the guide is reading it completely different. Or we have 2 cards next to it in a set of 3 and it's pulling us towards one particular part of that card that you're reading. It may have 4 or 5 different emblems in there, the flower, the thought lines. It may have dark clouds behind, things that are coming or going, but the cards with it are the ones that will guide that threesome as a whole. And just to finish with, on that count, we go to the death card. Now, please don't start reading out the death card as being death all the time. Look, it can be death. It can be the end of something. It can be the end of a situation. But it can be good. It can be the end of something bad. It can be the death of something bad, which is a brilliant thing. So if you've got cards around this that are perhaps an illness, death, and then a good card after it, and you start thinking, why have I got these in this way? There might be a reason to it. So the death card can mean anything. Look at the unicorn. We've got a mystical unicorn down here, so think of that as something mystical that could happen from the depths of despair, and things are going to finish and start good. Here, the right way round, I've got a little flower in there's actually a flower in there. It could mean that something's blooming, something's about to begin. So this can be the end, it can be the beginning. It depends on what you're reading. So that's really where I'm coming from. Try to look at the card in a little bit more detail and look at the cards around it. If you're reading 3 and you're reading it like me as a threesome, as a situation in one, then all those 3 can be read together and you're looking at what links each card through. There may be flowers in each card and each card has a flower that is blooming. Or if you're reading it past, present and future, you may be lucky, you may get a bud. Flowers in all 3, buds in the past. Yeah, things have been just getting ready. The flowers may be just blooming in the central card, and in the future card you've got Yep, everything bright and happy and cheerful may not have a flower in it, but hey, everything's bright and cheerful, which would depict flower. Flower becomes bright and cheerful. And we've got to try and read it a little bit more progressively through those 3 cards, depending on which way round you read it, as a threesome or as a past, present, future set of cards. Personally, I find it difficult to do the past, present, future bit. I read it as a threesome. But it's up to you. This is Mystic John Paranormal with how to read tarot cards with a little bit more insider information, if you like. So please do like and subscribe. I do need lots more likes and I do need lots more subscriptions, please. It does help. Do click the bell and click all on the notifications, because believe me or not, I've had people clicking the bell and not clicking all, and then they're not getting the notifications. Do be careful of that. And Mystic John Paranormal will say goodbye for one more video, and we'll see you again soon. Like and subscribe.